Fun fact, did you know that one of the most famous houses ever designed in the world was designed and drawn by the architect in under 3 hours? Yep, that's because Frank Lloyd Wright, he's amazing, and he let everybody know it. This is a video on Fallingwater by Frank Lloyd Wright, a 20th century architecture bite. Fallingwater is also known as the Kaufman House. It's in Pennsylvania, right outside of Pittsburgh. And Frank Lloyd Wright is our architect. This was designed and constructed during the interwar period, which means between the world wars, but it's in the United States, so 1936 to 1939. Reinforced concrete, which means there's stuff in the concrete making it stronger, sandstone, steel, and glass. So Frank Lloyd Wright used old materials and new materials, but he liked to hide the steel. He doesn't really like to show you the steel. So Frank Lloyd Wright was a bit of an ego, shall we say. He thought everyone else sucked, and he's good. He's very good. He was very good. He's got some legit argument there, but he might have taken a little too far. So he wants to do it his way or no way. His way is the only right way, and he will not compromise. Everyone else sucks. He is the best. Even all the other great architects making things at the same time as him, especially the Europeans, they all suck. He is the best. Many documentaries and books back me up on this. He was a jerk, a pretty big jerk, but that does not make his architectural projects and his imprint on the history of architecture any less important. But he was a jerk for sure. He hates the international style architects, those pure modern clean machine aesthetic architects. He cannot stand them. He makes jabs at them all the time. Frank Lloyd Wright was a big rule breaker. He was a student of Louis Sullivan, the guy who designed the Carson Peary Scott and Company building in Chicago, but he got fired by Louis Sullivan because he went behind his back and did some shady stuff because he was a jerk. And as many 20th century architects did, he got his start in Chicago. So here's one of his famous houses in Chicago from early in the 20th century. This is called the Roby House. And remember, his teacher was based in Chicago as well, Louis Sullivan. And Louis Sullivan had that mentality, that philosophy, form follows function. Well, Frank Lloyd Wright, he designed more than just houses, by the way, but with domestic architecture, he believed that free individuals have the right to move within a free space. So I encourage you all right now to close your eyes and think about your house, your apartment, your condo, your duplex, whatever it is that you live in, and put yourself in your kitchen. And I'm pretty sure that the good majority of you can see into other spaces in your house. There's no major walls that prohibit you from going from the kitchen to the living room or from the kitchen to the dining room. The common shared spaces of your house have no walls that create boundaries between them. He thought that shared spaces you should be free to move from one to the other. Bedrooms and bathrooms and stuff, those are closed off. And back then, kitchens were as well. But this was his philosophy. So we would call this now open concept. We don't like to have a whole lot of permanent walls in the main common areas of our houses. His architecture is referred to oftentimes as prairie style because there's such an emphasis on horizontal lines, which is reminiscent of flat prairies or plains of the Midwest. When Frank Lloyd Wright designed a home, it was all inclusive. Not only did you get the design for the house itself, he decorated everything. He designed the furniture. He designed the tapestries that would be the upholstery on those pieces of furniture. He designed the objects that would go into the house, everything. And there's not a whole lot of storage in his homes, so that's why so many of the houses that Frank Lloyd Wright designed around the world, they're either preserved as historic sites or people don't want to buy them because they're pretty, but they're really hard to live in this era when we kind of need places to store some stuff. And inside of his homes are always warm. There's always natural brick, the natural color of brick, the warms of reds or browns, and he designs the glass, he designs the light fixtures, he designs everything. So his buildings tend to have way more warmth and character than the international style architects from Europe. Here's an example of one of his tapestry designs. So, guys, these are the architects he hated. Their buildings are stupid, they lack warmth, they lack character, he hates them, they suck, and his opinion is the only one that matters. So, this is what a house looked like in Europe about 10 years or so before he designs Fallingwater. So, it's an important contrast to consider here. A very famous Frank Lloyd Wright quote: "I believe in God, only I spell it nature." Wow, Frank, that's deep. So, this building definitely fits with that quote, though. He integrates the site into the building so well. It famously sits on top of a water fountain. It is called, or not a water fountain, a waterfall, and it is called Fallingwater. So, we need to know the history of this building. There's lots of other good resources for you too on the website. So, Kaufman House. That's its actual name because it was commissioned by this dude named Edgar Kaufman. And Edgar Kaufman was a department store kind of magnate. He owned a department store in Pittsburgh. And this piece of land outside of Pittsburgh, which is called Bear Run, Pennsylvania officially, is where his family would go for like weekend getaways. And they absolutely loved to picnic on top of their favorite waterfall. So what Edgar Kaufman did was he invited Frank Lloyd Wright, who was actually kind of like in a bad part of his career. He wasn't getting a whole lot of commissions. His reputation had preceded him. He was kind of known as being a cantankerous individual that people didn't really like. So Edgar Kaufman knew him through his son and was like, "Frank, come to my piece of land here in Pennsylvania, and we love this waterfall. We would like a weekend house where we have a view of our favorite waterfall." No. If that's what you want, that's not necessarily what Frank Lloyd Wright's going to give you. So, we have the site plan of Fallingwater, which has the main house over the waterfall, and we have kind of guest houses back here. And here's another non-curriculum picture that kind of shows you the layout of Fallingwater. And something we can see a lot of on the house on Fallingwater is these things that project out and that don't have any support underneath them. These are kind of a Frank Lloyd Wright hallmark, and these are called cantilevers, which we're going to learn about. So, things to know about this building. Frank Lloyd Wright drew the plans for this house in just a few hours. He remembered every detail of the site and land from memory. He designed it on top of the waterfall, not with a view of the waterfall, and he integrated the nature literally into the home. So pretty much Frank Lloyd Wright came to this piece of property and he walked all around the property, did not do any sketches, did not take any notes, and he went back to his house, which is in Wisconsin, and he just did nothing, absolutely nothing for 9 months in terms of making designs or drawing up plans. And one day, Edgar Kaufman flew into Milwaukee, Wisconsin, called him and says, "Yo, Frankie, I'm 2 hours away, two-ish hours away. I'm going to come and see the plans that you've designed up for my new house." And Frank Lloyd Wright's like, "Sure, Mr. Kaufman, come on up. We got them ready for you." And in less than 3 hours, completely from memory, Frank Lloyd Wright drew up the plans for this house. He remembered every single little detail of the site, every placement of each tree, everything. He remembered everything. It's kind of a I don't even know the word, a legendary story related to when he drew the designs for this plan. He was very inspired by Japanese architecture. Remember, East Asian culture is very, very in harmony with nature. So he wanted the architecture to be in harmony with nature. He wanted harmony between architecture, man, and nature, so he integrated the house with the waterfall. And we can also see in this house, just like his other houses, an emphasis on horizontals. And he loves to use this thing called the cantilever. And the cantilever is used by a lot of architects nowadays too. But this was a Frank Lloyd Wright exclusive. It's a big projecting beam fixed only at one side. So like here, we can see that there are no supports underneath it, which means that there's support in there somewhere else holding it up. So Zaha Hadid uses the cantilever very intentionally on the Maxi 21st Century Art Museum in Rome. And here on this little structure, we can see a cantilever being used as well. The interior kind of just looks like the outside. Anytime there is a vertical, it's very thin. The steel is all colored red, so it doesn't look like metal. The floor looks like babbling water. Nothing in here is like white or black. It's all neutrals, it's earth tones, it's reds, it's yellows. He doesn't try to hide the material. He kind of leaves the stone a little jagged over here. He uses the natural color of the wood. This has a lot more warmth and character than the buildings by the European guys. He used as few verticals as possible so he wouldn't prohibit their view of the landscape around it. And as we can see here in this common space, there are no walls barring like one part of the space from another. Fallingwater is a site that you can go and visit now, and it's pretty cool. I'm going to show a little clip really quickly from PBS that I think is important to watch.
Wright named his building Fallingwater. It would eventually become the most famous modern house in the world. And he had drawn it all in less than 3 hours.
Boom.
Wright asked his client, where do you spend all your time when you're on this property? And they said, oh, we love to picnic on this rock. So what does he do? He builds the house on the rock, and they've lost their picnic place forever. And you can hardly see the rock. You have to go down in the stream, and the bugs eat you alive and all that to look up and see Mr. Wright's masterpiece. And indeed it was.
I think Fallingwater was many things. It's a beautiful response to its site, most of all. Instead of standing clear on a grass plain, it's coming out of the rock. Its slabs are anchored in the rock. You go behind Fallingwater and you see that they're gripping the rock back there, and then it goes on and it's just barely above the waterfall. And the water is just under you. You feel that you're in danger there, that you are in fact in a kind of suspension in space, where you have to be careful. And the water is always moving under you with that sense of uneasiness as it goes.
It's an extraordinary house. These floating planes over the waterfall, the structural drama, the spatial drama.
That was a clip from the Ken Burns documentary on Frank Lloyd Wright, which is amazing. And there's some other videos linked on the website, but I'm going to end with a really awesome story about Frank Lloyd Wright. So Fallingwater kind of put him back on the map and got him some more commissions. And one of his most famous and end of his career commissions, he actually never got to see this building completed, was a commission for the new Solomon R. Guggenheim Museum in New York City. And if you have ever been to New York City, chances are you have probably seen this building. It's very famous. But when he designed it and when the designs for this new museum started to be released, a lot of artists were like, excuse me, no. Where are you going to put our paintings? Where are the flat walls? Like, how are you going to hang a painting on the wall? And because it was famous for this ramp sloped gallery with curved walls, and clearly they have figured it out. But Frank Lloyd Wright's response back then was make better art. That was his response to artists calling for this design to be changed. And you're supposed to actually go in here and start at the top and go to the bottom, but he only made like one small little elevator. So he made some kind of dumb decisions sometimes with his designs as well. So when most people go to the Guggenheim now, they climb up and then just go back down. And it creates a really cool space now for like contemporary installations and performance pieces that are done here often. So make better art. That was our boy Frank Lloyd Wright's response. This was an anti-Sackler family protest by the artist Nan Golden, and a whole bunch of other artists collaborated a few years ago. Lots of things suspend in that space. So it's a pretty cool one.